thanks very much. I'm really pleased to be with you tonight and to see such a splendid turnout of people concerned about local healthcare. These are the building blocks. Yourselves are the building blocks of the type of movement that can actually turn around some of these disastrous plans that are coming forward. I've been campaigning, as just been said, I've been campaigning with our campaign, which isn't just in London, it covers the whole of England, the last 25 years. And I've dealt with a lot of proposals from different health bodies proposing cuts, closures and so forth, but I've seldom seen such an arrogant and completely high-handed and secretive management style as you can see here in Ontario with these plans, which are, they won't even deign to share with you. I mean, the half-hearted apologies that were read out at the beginning from these people who are supposed to be running your healthcare system, who are saying it would be inappropriate to talk to you about this before they've taken their decisions, and therefore they're only going to effectively come to you afterwards and try to actually persuade you to accept what they've already decided without asking you or involving you in any way. This is an utter scandal, and it's an outrageous way to treat people whose taxpayers' dollars actually fund the system. To say they'll only consult with you after they've taken the decisions is like a doctor saying, well, let's skip the medical exam, I'll go straight to the post-mortem after you've done. And, as you may be aware, this is my first time in this part of Ontario. I've been to Canada before, but I've never been this far across into Ontario. And this is obviously where all the good weather's at. It's fantastic. It's been raining on us right up until the point we got here. What I do know is I saw the bridge across the United States. Okay, and I know on the other side of the bridge you've got a nightmare in terms of healthcare. An absolute nightmare. Where they're spending $1 in 6 of the American economy on a healthcare system that leaves 1 American in 6 without insurance cover, and that they spend a fifth of that on administering the system and putting huge salaries in the pockets of executives. And it does seem that some of that is being imported across the bridge with some of these proposals. What are all these managers for in this new setup, these new local health integration networks that don't dare to talk to local people, but instead keep hiring more managers at hundreds of thousands of dollars a time? When did you last hear a ward closed for a lack of a manager? Yeah. When did managers ever treat more patients? What are these people actually contributing to healthcare? These are the kind of questions that need to be put. And why are your locally elected representatives not actually challenging this setup, not actually with you campaigning on these questions? In particular, the MPPs, it seems all across the province, are sticking their heads in the sand, pretending it's not happening, rather than getting out and fighting the local people to keep their hospitals. One of the things about having Medicare and being Canadian and not American and facing the nightmare of their healthcare system is that you have a healthcare system that should be planned around patients and their needs and not around the profits of the private sector and lining the pockets of shareholders. But actually what you've got here, in this area and in other areas where some of these cuts are starting to take shape, is precisely that. You've got a privately funded hospital here, which is costing $28 million a year. $28 million a year, which by my calculations from the figures I've just picked up, I've been making this up as I got here, but it seems to be true, is actually over a sixth of the annual budget of the Trust, just to actually rent the building to deliver services for one part of those healthcare services. No wonder they're running out of money to maintain Matthews Memorial Hospital and these other services that you need in the area. They're squandering this money. This is going into the pockets of shareholders. These are fat, guaranteed profits for the next 28 years into the pockets of shareholders while they shut down your services to pay the bill. Now, how does that make any sense? We know about P3s because I'm afraid our government started it. Right? I'm afraid this is a failed experiment that you borrowed from England, because we had them before you did. And we now have, according to our own Department of Health in England, 100 hospitals funded through private finance, that have been built and funded, and in many cases the service is operated under a contract, rather as happens with your local hospital here, under private finance. These hospitals, according to the Department of Health, are going to cost, and I'll leave the money in pounds because the comparison's in pounds, are going to cost, the hospitals themselves are worth £11 billion. According to our Department of Health, they're going to cost, over the lifetime of these contracts, which is between 25 and 39 years, these are going to cost £62 billion to repay. Now, anyone can come along and argue that's value for money is a complete nutcase, or a capitalist wanting to pick the money up at the end of the day. You know, this is a crazy, crazy way to finance hospitals. And when we look at now the situation, more P3s are being put forward. We were in St Catherine's yesterday, in the area there, look at the St Catherine's P3 hospital, where they've just signed up a plan to build a hospital at $1.4 million a bed. $1.4 million per bed. And yet at the same time we can see a comparison in Peterborough, further across, Peterborough, where they've just finished a publicly funded campaign at $385,000 per bed. So you're paying for the privilege of bringing the private sector in $1.1 million a bed extra from what you could get it if you publicly funded the scheme. Now this is why these people don't want to publicise what they're doing. This is why they won't consult you on what's happening, because this is the type of logic they're applying and they're rolling out in the plans that they're making. This is why your government won't talk to you, and this is why they've got plenty to hide. When people won't publish the information, you know they're hiding something. Yeah? If they're proud of what they're doing, why don't they come out and show us what they're doing? What are they